2021 is over. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Let's hope 2022 is better. But we're going to be talking movies, and we are talking what, in my opinion, is the best indie genre movies that have come out in 2021. Now, I have not seen every genre movie, so this is only going to be obviously movies that I have seen. Even on the channel, there's other films that either Tom or Aaron or Lisa have reviewed that I still haven't. So this is just going to be films that I have personally watched. And I will say, in previous years, I have included kind of mainstream films as well as kind of B movies in this list. But I really I don't feel like I've seen enough mainstream films this year to really warrant doing that. I will, however, say that Spider-Man No Way Home is probably overall my favourite film of the year, to be honest with you. But it's not on this list because this list I've kind of just put it as kind of indie films. And to be honest with you, looking back on the films I've reviewed, it was a tough list because there wasn't many that I really, really liked. Now, let's get on to it. Let's kind of go through what I would recommend these movies. Couple of honourable mentions. The first one being Fear Street Part 2. And I didn't even love this movie. I did enjoy this movie, but to me the second one was the best one. The kind of the referencing the kind of movies of the kind of the 70s and the early 80s. That was the most fun one in my opinion. The other kind of honourable mention I would say is Dawn of the Beast, and this is a kind of a fun movie which pits Wendigos against Bigfoot and a group of humans kind of trapped in the middle. Quite enjoyed that one. But that is the honourable mentions out the way. Let's talk my top 10. Now there is going to be a controversy in this one, and I'll explain why that is in just a minute. But number 10, we are talking Major Grom Plague Doctor, which I gave a 7 out of 10. And this is a kind of a Russian superhero movie. I think it is based on a comic book, and I was surprisingly enjoyed this movie. It was well made. I was impressed with the kind of the production value here. It had quite an interesting story. It was kind of classic kind of superhero, albeit from a kind of a Russian production. Yeah, I enjoyed that one. Worth a watch. Next up, we have The Empty Man, and this one is technically listed as a 2020, but that I believe was its festival kind of debut. Its mainstream release was early kind of 2021. So The Empty Man was an intriguing kind of horror mystery. It's quite a long film. It has quite a in-depth plot, and it almost has two films in one. The beginning 20 minutes almost is a story unto itself, which was excellent, and then it kind of changes direction after that. But it's still a good movie overall, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. Next up, we have The Boys from County Hell, which I also gave a 7. And that is also listed as a 2020 movie, but again, it was the festival release. And this was an Irish kind of vampire comedy movie that I kind of enjoyed quite a lot. Good, fun characters, interesting kind of twist with the kind of the vampire legends. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Next up, we have Space Sweepers, which I think is Korean off the top of my head, and is a sweeping space opera with some fantastic visuals, some fun characters, and yeah, it really kind of reminded me a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy when I watched it. I scored it a 7 out of 10, and yeah, a fun movie all around. Now, next up, we're talking The Deep House, which I scored 6 out of 10. So why is that higher than the others that I scored 7 out of 10s? Whilst I have some critical issues with The Deep House, from a kind of critical perspective, I enjoyed this movie more than some of the other ones. So it's kind of like one of those films where I can appreciate it had its faults, but I actually I enjoyed this movie more so than, that's why it's higher up on the list. I hope that makes sense. That is the controversy. This is a fun concept which has a couple go to this kind of house which is submerged at the bottom of the lake, and it's essentially a haunted house movie but underwater, where our characters for like 90% of the movie are in kind of like scuba gear. I thought it was so unique and kind of like visually arresting because of this kind of, you know, everything kind of floating around. It gave it a real otherworldly experience. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I did have a few problems with it, but I enjoyed the visuals so much. and I felt it was so unique looking, I can't help but, for me personally, enjoy it, even though I do think it has some issues. Next up we have Red Snow, which I think is the most recent movie on this list, and it's a Christmas themed vampire film that involves this kind of writer who is meant to be like the kind of like the woman who did the Twilight films and stuff like that, kind of a loose adaptation of that sort of thing. But she is visited by a real vampire of whom she kind of has a bit of a growing kind of relationship with, but there are also trials ahead. What'll happen? Go watch it. But I enjoyed that one quite a bit. Next up, we have Benny Loves You. Now, this one actually is listed as a 2019 movie, but again, it's its festival release. The general release was this year. And this was a really fun killer puppet movie. It's played for laughs. It's not meant to be a film you take particularly seriously. But you know, we've seen a few kind of killer toy movies in the last few years, and this one to me was a standout one because the Benny kind of creature, if you like, was still quite adorable and not portrayed to be menacing or evil necessarily, but it was kind of like would just kill people, but still kind of be cute when doing it. I kind of quite enjoyed that one. And then we have the top three here. This is the top three here, which I genuinely thought were very kind of high quality movies. Number 3 on the list, which I scored a 7 out of 10, is The Retaliators. And this is kind of it is a horror film, but it doesn't kind of get to the horror until quite late in the game. And it's about a guy who is kind of seeking a revenge for a tragedy that has befallen him, and uncovers some dark secrets. And it gets pretty out there towards the end of the film, and it is pretty hardcore, but it's emotionally very kind of hard-hitting through some good character work. Well-written story and good acting. So, The Retaliators, great movie. Number 2, we have Blood Red Sky, which was another vampire movie. This one about a woman who is a kind of a vampire that has to try and get by on a plane journey. However, that's threatened with a terrorist kind of take over the plane, and she has no choice but to kind of reveal herself as a vampire. Great movie, spoken in a mix of, I think it's German and English off the top of my head, but really good film, and I thoroughly enjoyed that one. My number 1 movie is the only movie that I scored an 8 outside of Spider-Man No Way Home, and that is Blood Conscious. Now, this might be a surprising one because this is a very low-key movie, and it's essentially about this kind of family that go to this kind of country retreat to see their sort of folks, and they find out that everyone is dead there, and there's a guy holding a gun who claims that they're all secretly demons. And it's a really great psychological movie because it kind of thinks, are they demons? Were they demons? Or is this guy just nuts and kind of gone on a killing spree? And, I think it does a great job of really having that kind of that paranoia build because you don't know what's actually kind of going on. But the movie is so skillful, it doesn't kind of lose you. And it ends in a way, I know a lot of people hate the ending. I actually quite like, I don't see where else they could have gone with the ending, to be honest. But yeah, I really enjoyed that with it. To me, that was like, that's how you do a low budget film without, if you don't have a big budget to do all these effects, it needs to be smart writing, and that's what it is. So that was my top 10 list. Have you seen any of those movies? I know that some people don't like, for example, The Deep House. I enjoyed it, but I do understand it has problems. What did you think? Any of these movies that sound good to you? We'll check them out. Let's see what 2022 has to offer. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.